how the government shutdown is going to affect real estate. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode where we have gotten a bazillion questions on how the government shutdown is going to affect real estate. So we are in the middle of this and in the thick of things. So let's kind of jump right in. Obviously, we're located in Cherokee County, Oklahoma, and we do surrounding counties also. So this is for all of Oklahoma. I realize that in different areas things could be slightly different, but at the end of the day, it's going to affect everyone. So let's jump in. What gets delayed and what doesn't? Let's start with the good news. Typically speaking, conventional loans are not affected by the government shutdown. However, things that can still affect a conventional loan that are affiliated with the government is that if you need your tax transcripts or there's something from the IRS that you need to be able to get your loan to go through. These are offices that they are either closed completely or understaffed or they might be open, but they're doing only certain parts of the job. And unfortunately, tax transcripts would not be considered, necessary, if you will. So if you have all of your documentation and you've already submitted it, probably with conventional loan, you're not going to see any hiccups, but just want to point that out. The file that, the other two files that are still running smoothly, the VA and FHA. But hear me out. That does not mean that 100% it's running smoothly because, again, they are seeing staffing shortages and different departments that are closed, and there can be delays in those areas. So it's not an absolute guarantee, and I think that the thing to do if you're a buyer and you're using a VA or an FHA loan, and if you're a seller, to have really in-depth questions and conversations with your agent and with your lender. Here's what we're seeing is that our local lenders, our trusted people, we were on the phone with them day one, they were giving us feedback. The other files, when we were reaching out, if we were speaking to maybe like a large corporation that was national, who we were talking to sometimes was a loan originator who doesn't actually do any of the processing and may not have real true information about how the loan process works. Their job is just to originate a bunch of loans, through social media or certain websites. And they were telling our clients, I don't think it's going to affect us at all. And then 2 to 3 hours later, we were getting updates that, yes, you're not closing next Tuesday like we thought you were. So being familiar with your lender, how long they've been in business, what actual position they're in, and then just asking very, very specific questions. Are there going to be any delays on submitting your documentation? Because like for an FHA, you have to be granted a number for that file, and that is where we're going to run into some delays with that. The absolute biggest files that will 100% be delayed are rural development loans and the HUD 184 loan, which is also considered a Native American FHA loan. So a lot of times when people say, no, I think I'm going to be okay because I have an FHA loan, in our market, we then have to clarify, but is it a HUD 184, which is loans for Native Americans? Because it is a different layer of the government that gets involved with that, and it will cause an absolute delay. In fact, those files are somewhat stagnant in the sense that we cannot close at this time until the government reopens, or hopefully that there's some kind of concession made, for some of these files. The other thing that it's important to know is that even when the government reopens, like let's say that we get really lucky and it reopens in 2 weeks, guys, we're not looking at then closing within 2 to 3 days. There will be a backlog. Think of it this way. If you were told one day, don't go to work tomorrow, and all of your files were just exactly where they are, and you weren't allowed to touch them or update yourself on them, and 2 weeks later you walk in, it's kind of worse than having been on vacation, because when you're on vacation, you kind of prepare for it and you think ahead, but to just be told today you're not allowed back in the office tomorrow, and then all of a sudden it opens back up. It's just kind of a fog brain situation where they're trying to figure out where they're at in the file, what's going on. And remember, there's so many people that touch the file. So it's really imperative to know that if the government reopened, say on October the 20th, we would not be closing things on the 22nd or 23rd. You're still going to be, I would say, 7 business days out, and that's not a guarantee, but it would help you kind of determine what's realistic. And this is so mindful of what happened during COVID, it's actually not the seller's fault and it's not the buyer's fault, but it is both of their faults if we don't plan ahead and all work together. We need to be bipartisan. I don't know if that's a thing. It's not sellers against buyers. So, but it's really important for everyone to be aware and to not take it personally and not to assume that it's the seller's fault or the buyer's fault, or want to charge some exorbitant fee because of these delays. So being mindful, planning ahead, not letting it surprise you. Don't go put money down on a U-Haul for your closing date that's scheduled right now for the 23rd. Because guys, I don't think that, and I really hope I get to eat these words, but I don't think it's going to be cleared up that quickly. And even if it is, there will still be a backlog that causes delays, and that's just the way it goes. During COVID, we saw this kind of thing. Do not shut off your prepaid utilities. Do not shut off your prepaid house payments. You, as a seller, are still 100% responsible for the property. That means maintaining the lawn. That means keeping the utilities on. That means continuing to make those house payments. Yes, it's very, very difficult. It's unfortunate. And yes, it can become expensive, but this is just what happens in these cases. And I will give you a little bit of backstory. This has happened 21 times previously in the history, and it will happen again. So it's just one of those things that we have to work through, and this is where it becomes very important on who you chose as your realtor, and are they keeping you as informed as possible. And sometimes I have to call clients and say, hey, I was calling to give you an update. And the update is I have absolutely no information, but I did look through your file and we've done everything we possibly can at this point. Now, appraisals can still be ordered, so sellers do not turn away the appraiser. It's really important to keep things moving forward as opposed to just putting everything on hold yourself because the government is not open. That is a massive no-no, and that can put you even farther behind. So everything you can do to keep it moving forward is important. The next thing is like the real impact on Cherokee County. I think it's very similar to what happened during COVID. The key is preparation and just doing everything you can prior to. If you are an active buyer who's looking, don't stop looking, guys. The interest rates are really good. You can go ahead and go into contract. You can lock down a home. You can lock down your interest rate. But unfortunately, we can't guarantee when you're going to be closing. So just be mindful of that. And I do recommend that you don't try to come in with a 30-day closing because that could be very frustrating to everyone. And at the end of the day, it's completely unrealistic unless you're doing a conventional loan or a cash buy. Now, let's talk about that. Let's say that you are doing a conventional loan or a cash purchase. Guys, this is a great opportunity and a great time because without all of the VA, FHA, RD, and HUD 184 files, everything has been kind of slowed down on those. If you're purchasing conventional or you're purchasing cash, you're going to have a lot more leeway and be able to close sooner and even potentially get a better deal on the property that you're purchasing, because sellers will look at that they can either wait until the government opens back up and make $3,000 to $5,000 more, or they can make a deal with you and get the deal completed. So it's not all negatives, just being aware of what your options are. And again, if you're a buyer who has not started the process, do not delay, guys. These interest rates are phenomenal right now. And I do believe that sellers are looking at, getting their homes off the market before the end of the year. So it's really kind of a good time to go ahead and jump in, as long as you're realistic about the timeline. So that is what we've got on the government being shut down. So get active, make some calls to your representatives, and let's see if we can't, pull the chain to get this thing moving forward again. Okay, guys, please like, follow, and share, and I'd love to get your comments on it. Thanks for watching.